Ideally, a good boss fight involves a game testing you out on all of the mechanics you've learned from playing the game in one ultimate culmination of a battle. But hey, who cares about all that when you create an absolutely ass-kickingly brutal boss fight? What's up guys, I'm Dave Klein and these are my top 9 hardest boss fights. Number 9, Illusion of Gaia. Illusion of Gaia is one of my favorite action RPGs from the SNES era. It has a surprisingly dark story for a game of its time and some great overall gameplay, and hiding under this is a ridiculously challenging final boss. First you'll fight what's essentially a comet with minor bullet hell segments, and you'll have to hurt it when it opens its mouth and avoid its reign of terror. It'll then transform into its second form, which again, you can only hurt when it opens its mouth. That said, it will shoot a constant barrage of bubbles and electric shocks at you, and when it does open its mouth, making it vulnerable, a powerful mouth laser beam down at you. Most of what makes this boss difficult is how small the window of being able to actually hurt it is, but this one's still possible, unlike some of the upcoming ones. Number 8, Undertale. Undertale became an indie darling and internet sensation after it came out in 2015, and for good reason. The game takes RPG conventions and turns them on their head to tell an incredibly well-written story with amazing characters and sound. But there's darkness hidden in this game, and I don't want to spoil how to get the most challenging boss fight in the game, but when you do activate it, get ready for some real tears. When Sans finally chooses to fight you, he means business and will do everything in his power to stop you. Not only does he have some of the hardest patterns to dodge and require quick twitch reactions on your part, oh no! He'll take it to another level, even attacking you while you're in your menu screen, choosing if you want to attack him or heal. Sans is meant to be a giant deterrent against you, and, well, he succeeds. Number 7, Mega Man X. I love Mega Man X. This is easily one of the best side-scrolling games out there with incredibly slick gameplay and great music. And it all culminates with an epic boss battle against the game's primary antagonist, Sigma. Like many bosses you'll see on this list, battling Sigma has 3 phases, with all 3 being challenging in their own right. The first involving fighting Sigma's Robo-Dog, which isn't too challenging, but will cause you to potentially lose some health before the terror that is Sigma himself. Sigma uses a sword and flies across the walls, with you needing to wall jump at the right timing to both dodge him and attack him. Finish this and his head will float into and control a full room machine that will shoot lightning beams at you from just about everywhere as he breathes fire at you. Stand on his heads wrong, the only way to attack him, and you'll get zapped. Oh, and if you lose, it'll be right back down to the tower leading up to him, where you'll have to farm for healing items to even remotely have a chance against him, so have fun with that! Number 6, Ninja Gaiden. Ninja Gaiden was one of the first truly challenging games I played as a kid, and one of my favorites. But while the game is overall challenging, none of it comes close to the difficulty of its own final boss. And it was thanks to this final boss I was never able to conquer the game. Jacchio. Let me begin by telling you that to get to this boss, you have to go through the most difficult section of the game. And not only that, but by losing to Jacchio once, even if you have lives to spare, you'll have to start at the very beginning of this section. So you never really get to train and learn how to defeat him, as it's so hard to even get a chance. But when you do get a chance, he shoots constant homing fireballs that will knock out a huge chunk of your health if they touch you as he flies back and forth across the screen. And that's really all there is to him. But what the hell? He is so hard! Oh, and that's not all. After going through the hardest portion of the game, you fight this boss with however much health you had entering the boss room, meaning if you screwed up at all on the final room over to him, sorry, but you gotta face him with less health. Number 5, Bloodborne. Dark Souls and the various Soulsborne games have become some of my favorite games of the modern generation of gaming, and while several bosses from each of the games could easily make this list, there's one in particular that stands out for me. Now bear in mind that different playstyles will mean different bosses will be more challenging or easier, and this just happened to be the one that completely wrecked my shit up. A boss of the Bloodborne DLC. That handsome little devil right over there is none other than the Orphan of Kaz, and oh my god is he insane! The first half of this fight involves dealing with what I lovingly call his yo-yo blade, which he'll toss at you, swing around like a yo-yo, and pull back into him. And while this is hard enough, halfway through the fight his wings will develop enough for him to fly at you. He's insanely aggressive, as AoE attacks he'll toss at you, and never lets up to give you a moment to breathe. And his yo-yo blade, as I said earlier, wrecked my shit straight up. Number 4, Mike Tyson's Punch-Out! Punch-Out remains one of my favorite NES games and is probably the reason I enjoy boxing as a sport. The game is entirely about quick twitch gameplay, with you quickly reacting to the boxers you face, as you'll be forced to read their tells and respond quickly. And while you could say there aren't any bosses in the game, as the game is just fighting different boxers, I like to think of the title bout fights as the bosses, and none of them can hold a candle to the game's namesake, Mike Tyson. First things first, when he first comes at you, a single hit will knock you down. So, a lot like the real Mike Tyson was in his prime, Digital Mike will straight up murder you with a single mistake. Mike Tyson takes quick twitch reactions to the next level, to the point where I felt like when I finally did conquer Mike, I wasn't so much reacting to his punches as anticipating them, and dodging without even seeing the tell. Number 3, Prinny. One day, when perusing a game store after having bought my brand new PSP, I was searching for a fun new game to play, and happened upon Prinny. A game about a pirate-looking penguin. I said to myself, this has to be good. And what I found was a game where you start with 1,000 lives, as it is so challenging and you will need them all. And the final boss, Sir Sweet, makes the list. The second form of this boss is the definition of bug biting. And it's not so much that the boss's attacks are that difficult to remember, as this will take a lot of memorization. It's more so because it's so bug bitey, the battle will last a long time no matter how good you are, and any little mistake will cost you dearly. That's not cool, dude. That was a reference to the game.
Take it easy, dudes!
Number 2, Castlevania III. Before Castlevania was known for being similar to Metroid or trying to take elements from Shadow of the Colossus, it was a brutally difficult side-scrolling action game. And Castlevania III took the challenge of Castlevania 1, ramping it up to a level of insanity, especially when it comes to the final boss himself, Dracula. This fight is similar to the Dracula from Castlevania 1, but made even more challenging. Dracula will shoot fire beams at you from the ground as he teleports around the screen. And while it might look easy, the controls of Castlevania are clunky, which ramps up the challenge tenfold. But you see, while that's challenging in and of itself, there's more. Oh, so much more, because this Dracula has not one, not 2, but 3 phases to fight, including a final phase involving him shooting eyeball and hand beams at you as you have to jump across moving platforms with immediate death holes forming underneath. Oh, and similar to Jaquio from Ninja Gaiden, if you lose all of your lives to Dracula in any phase, you'll be brought right back to the beginning of the final stage, which is brutally difficult. So yeah, if you want to learn his patterns, good luck getting back to him. Number 1, Mushihime-sama Futari. A genre I happen to love is the bullet hell genre, especially when it comes to top-down scrolling shooter games. In these games, non-stop bullets come at you, and along with shooting down your enemies, the real goal is dodging their bullets. That said, there's a point where the insanity is too much. There's a point where you have to look and say, how in the fuck am I supposed to do that? Okay. So all of that purple on the screen, all of it is death. This game was originally made for arcades to fucking rob people of quarters. Or yen, as the arcade machines were never released stateside. And all I can do is look at that and say, what the shit? The margin of error you're allowed is 0 to none. And by the way, that's pretty much the entire game. So hey, if you're a straight up masochist, this just might be for you. Alright guys, that does it for my top 9 hardest boss fights. Keep in mind a lot of it's subjective for what's challenging for you. Also, you could easily do a full list on just bullet hell bosses or Soulsborne bosses, so I decided to limit those. Let me know what bosses absolutely kicked your ass and what you think should have made the list, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.